Good morning. How's everyone doing? Great. It's my pleasure to be here to introduce a great friend of mine, somebody I've known for a long time and have been fascinated in watching him grow and personally and to grow his business. I think you know a little bit about it and about him, but let me tell you the story real quickly for those of you who may not be completely up to speed. He was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. He grows up in Denver, Colorado. His dad's a very savvy, seasoned business executive. So our first speaker goes to business school and completes a business degree. But food is his real passion. So he comes to the Culinary Institute of America and begins to fulfill that passion for food. You may know that the CIA requires what we call an externship experience between the first and second year. It's a full 3 months working out in the industry to kind of acid test that first year of experience. So our speaker goes to San Francisco. We always encourage our students to try to go to a big city and not to go home, to stretch their wings to try to do something different. So he goes to San Francisco. And he does his externship with Jeremiah Tower, legendary chef Jeremiah Tower, at Star's Restaurant in San Francisco, really in Star's heyday. One of the cutting edge pioneers of American cuisine back in the day. Has a great externship, comes back to the CIA, finishes up very strong. He's an extraordinary student. Upon graduation, he returns to San Francisco and to Star's and to Jeremiah Tower, where he works for 2 years. Now, if you don't know anything about Jeremiah Tower, Jeremiah was a real pioneer in American cuisine and experimented with all kinds of flavors. So back in the 80s, he was also the very first chef at Chez Panisse, if you don't know that. Experimented with a lot of different flavor elements, including Mexican flavors. And so one of his famous dishes sounds simple today, but it was very cutting edge at the time. It was a grilled chicken breast on a spicy stew of black beans with salsa and guacamole. And he drizzled a little bit of sour cream over the top. So our speaker's there working for Jeremiah for several years. And while there, he goes down to the Mission District on occasion. And he's kind of fascinated by some burrito shops there. And what he's really fascinated, he's cooking Mexican ingredients and Mexican flavored foods at Star's, but what he's really fascinated by is the system of production that he sees and how quickly and efficiently they're producing. But all of that's kind of a side thought, because what he really wants to do is to be a great chef with a high-end white tablecloth restaurant. He wants to be like Jeremiah Tower and an important chef and restaurateur at the highest levels of quality and price in the industry. So when the time comes, couple years later, he says, I'm ready. He's an entrepreneur at heart. He wants to raise money to open his own restaurant. He goes back home to Denver and he knocks on doors of banks, of the SBA, of potential investors, of friends and family, unsuccessfully. Nobody's willing to invest in his high-end restaurant dreams. So he takes a step back and says, how else can I raise this money to do what it is that I want to do? And he comes up with this idea for a little burrito shop, which he views as a means to an end. This is going to get him to his high-end restaurant. He talks his dad into lending him $85,000, and he finds a out-of-business ice cream shop. I think it was called Dolly Madison, soft serve ice cream. And he rents it, and he creates Chipotle Mexican grills. It's an instantaneous success. It's right off of the campus of the University of Denver. Instantaneous success. He had figured that he was going to break even if he could sell more than 107 burritos. And easily, they're selling 1,000 a day. So he opens another, and he opens another, because he wants to still, at that time, generate enough money to do his fancy high-end restaurant. He gets up to about 14, and these guys from McDonald's come along. And they say, hey, Steve, this is a super cool idea. We don't invest in other companies. We've never done that before, but your idea is so cool. Would you mind if we gave you a couple $1 million and helped you to grow? And interesting, he says, because you wouldn't think of him in the same vein as McDonald's necessarily. Interestingly, he says, yeah, let's do that. And over the next several years, they grow to 500 restaurants all over the country. And then they decide to take the company public. They do an IPO. McDonald's says, see you later, Steve. This has been really, really nice, and leave him as the principal shareholder in control of the company, as the CEO, as the chairman, and the major shareholder. Today, Chipotle has, I think, 1,800 restaurants, over $3 billion in sales, 85,000 employees. This is extraordinary. But and he's got several other concepts that are now growing. Shop House, which is kind of an Asian version of Chipotle, and a brand new concept that I think that he has 2 locations, soon to be 3, Pizzeria Locale. So the interesting thing about our speaker, the first speaker, is that he's a food guy. And along the way, along this journey, he decided that he wanted to revolutionize fast food. He wanted to completely change the model. And the way that he did that was from a food perspective. He wasn't going to spend money in marketing, but he was going to spend money in having better food. The people still in his restaurants are cooking. There's knives and pots and pans and all the things that you don't normally find in fast food restaurants. If you ever have the occasion to talk to him, and to talk to him about food, you'll see that he is extraordinarily knowledgeable. And about the restaurant scene. I mean, he can tell you what the cutting edge restaurants are, who's who, what they're doing, what's cool, what's not cool, what's gonna be important in the future and what's not. He's really, really a very, very special guy who's done something special in the industry. Started in 1993, and in 22 years has created an unbelievable organization and completely transformed the fast food industry. So with that introduction, it's my pleasure to bring to the stage, join me in welcoming the founder, the co-CEO now of Chipotle Mexican Grills, Steve Ells.
Thank you. Tim, thank you. That was very, very nice, very kind of you, very complimentary. Probably over the top, but that's okay. And listen, thanks to Will and Anthony, too, for putting this together. What an extraordinary event. I really feel honored to be part of this. I met a lot of the speakers last night. You're in for a treat, some really fantastic folks here to share stories with you. I'm going to start with my story 22 years ago when I started the restaurant, the single restaurant. The important decisions that I made about Chipotle that, before the restaurant opened, I was telling friends and family and other people in the business, I was sharing with them the things about Chipotle that were going to be special. And they were giving me this feedback that all of these decisions were wrong. First, it was the name, Chipotle. They said, I didn't even know how to pronounce that. Chipotle, Chipotle, Chipitle, and I don't even know what it means. I said, well, it's simple. It's a dried and smoked jalapeno pepper. It really has a lot of depth and character and nuance and layers of flavor, and it speaks to the kind of food that we're going to serve. And no one's going to get it. Well, I described that we were going to have a very focused menu. We were going to serve burritos and tacos. And they said, and what else? I said, well, that's it. We're going to just focus on that. But there's going to be lots of different combinations of things that you can put together, and it's going to be this interactive service format. Well, no, Steve, that's not going to work. Look at all the competitors of yours. They have these massive menus, and they have these massive menus because people want choice. People want variety. So I was doing that wrong. I said that it was going to cost $4.50 for a burrito. They were shocked. They said, Steve, no one's going to come. Taco Bell was featuring $59, $79, $99 back in 1993, and certainly they were going to favor that over $4.50. Here's a crazy one. I was describing this open kitchen where you wouldn't have to tell people that the food is fresh or handmade or from great ingredients. They were just going to see it. I said, oh, you're going to be chopping fresh cilantro and mixing it with the rice and the lime juice. We're going to be mashing avocados to make guacamole. We'll be grilling chicken right in front of the customer. They said, ooh, they're going to see raw chicken? I swear to God, they were afraid of raw chicken. I'm like, yeah, you really want to let people know how you're making the food. We'll say that's going to be a big turnoff. No one's going to like that. You're wrong, Steve. You're wrong. On and on. I can give lots of examples, but at the end of the day, this is about being right, and the customer, who's always right, as we know, loved it. And as Tim said, it was a success from the beginning. It wasn't a wild success from the beginning. I remember the first couple days, I was just like looking, okay, when are people coming in? But it did take a few months, and we were off to a really good start. But probably the reason people liked it was because it was so different. And I could only cook from the heart, and I could only run a restaurant based on my experiences. And my experiences were, the classic cooking techniques at the Culinary Institute, and what I had learned from Jeremiah at Stars. And so that's what I applied to Chipotle, and that's what resonated with customers. And back then, I remember I had this, I call it a vision or a mission. I wanted to show that just because food is served fast doesn't mean it has to be a typical fast food experience. That if you bring the classic cooking techniques and the kinds of things that you would do in a full-scale restaurant, a fancy restaurant, bring that to fast food, but be convenient and accessible price point-wise, et cetera, that you could really elevate that experience. And so that vision or mission carried us for quite a while, and we opened new restaurants, and we were building the business, and it was exciting, and we were getting more attention. It was a lot of fun. It was a ton of hard work, but very, very rewarding. Along the way, though, I started questioning where the ingredients were coming from. Certainly, we were buying fresh ingredients and preparing them there, but it occurred to me that fresh wasn't enough anymore, that you really needed to understand the provenance. You really needed to understand what was going on the farms or the ranches. And probably many of you have heard the story about my first visit to a pig farm with Paul Willis from Nyman Ranch, and I saw all these pasture-raised piglets that weren't raised on antibiotics or growth hormones, and it made for a really beautiful scene, but also for delicious pork. So I asked, though, I said, well, isn't this the way all pigs are raised, not knowing really much about the industrial farming methods? And so I took a trip and visited some of those industrial farming places, CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations. And what I saw really, really horrified me, disgusted me, and I knew that I didn't want to be part of that or have my success based on the exploitation that I saw. And it gave birth to this thing that we call food with integrity. And so a new vision sort of evolved out of this, and I started to say that I wanted to change the way people think about and eat fast food. It was a sort of a big, ambitious vision, right, to change the way people think about and eat fast food. Here we have dozens of restaurants, and then there are big fast food giants like McDonald's with 13,000, but we were confident. We were confident that we were doing something that customers really, really liked, and we thought it was important. If I think back to fast food when I was a kid in the 70s, we used to go eat fast food as a treat, maybe after a ball game or for a friend's birthday party. And as a treat, fast food could be fine. The problem, though, is decades later, fast food has become part of everybody's everyday diet because it's convenient and inexpensive and very, very accessible. And the food itself, though, really isn't designed to be the best everyday diet. So you have this problem. You could argue that perhaps this is why we have health problems, obesity problems, all these kinds of things. At least I will argue that. So why is it important to change the way people think about and eat fast food? Well, I come from a world of fine dining. The chef who trained me, Jeremiah, was at Chez Panisse, sort of one of the very early restaurants to show that great food comes from seasonal, local, artisanally produced sources. And this food is great, but today it's more of an elitist pursuit than not, right? This is not the food that everybody's eating. And so we want to change the way people think about and eat fast food and bring those aspects of the business so that everybody can eat better. It's really exciting, and what's most rewarding now is that we see lots of people getting into this business, and they're doing this with great success. And consumers are changing their mind, and I think fast food is becoming irrelevant, and I think that's very, very good for our food culture in this country. But we still have a lot of work to do. We have two new concepts: Shop House, which is the Southeast Asian version of Chipotle, and Pizzeria Locale. Pizzeria Locale is a restaurant that was first started by friends of mine, Bobby Stuckey and Lachlan Patterson, who have Frosca Food and Wine in Boulder, Colorado, one of the great restaurants in the country. And their pizzeria, full-scale pizzeria, sort of based on Neapolitan-style pizza, inspired this idea to turn it into a fast casual restaurant. When I presented the idea to them, they were really excited, and we worked long and hard to develop a special oven that could cook consistently and fast, and talked about recipes and dough and all this sort of thing. I was intrigued by the dough, actually, still am. Not being much of a baker, I learned a lot about it. And so I'm at this investor conference, and this is going to lead me to my big point here. That's going to make changing food culture, or changing the way people think about and eat fast food, possible. So at this investor conference, and I was describing to these investors this new concept, Pizzeria Locale. And I was going on and on about the dough, and I was saying it's really cool. It's like if you look at pizza dough in all the sort of the fast foodish kind of pizza concepts, there are a bunch of different ingredients. There's preservatives, there's dough conditioners, there's vital wheat gluten, there's all this stuff that you don't need in traditional bread making. You have flour, water, starter, and salt. And we make our own starter at Pizzeria Locale. We have a mother, right, that we tend to, which is flour and water, and you care for that, and it is an active starter. So it's really 3 ingredients. But it takes care. It takes a skilled team to pay attention to this starter, and it's affected. Making this dough is affected by temperature and humidity, and it's hard to do. But it's delicious when they get it right. So this investor said, well, we'll see, that's fine, but obviously you're going to scale this concept. It's going to get big, like Chipotle, hopefully. Don't you need to make this dough foolproof? Sounds very complicated. Don't you need to make it foolproof? I think for a second. Foolproof. Foolproof. So any old fool can make it? I'm like, well, we don't have fools at Chipotle or Pizzeria Locale or Shop House. We don't need to make this foolproof. In fact, it took me to a discussion with these investors about how we do things in a very, very difficult way at Chipotle. We get cases of whole raw ingredients, and we take out knives and cutting boards and prep for hours. And we have pots and pans, and we cook, and we grill, and we saute. And we serve in this interactive format. And it's hard. It takes a really, really special team. But think about the other way of doing it. Think about where fast food has evolved to. Fast food has become such a highly processed product that all it takes is the push of a button to rethermalize this product, and then it's packaged and served according to a number or something like this. That's what it has. That is what fast food is. So we have to go back and rethink this and use the classic cooking techniques. And the classic cooking techniques and the sexy menus and the really beautiful decor for all these concepts, it's part of it, but it's not the biggest part. The biggest part is the people. You need a team who's willing to buy into the vision. And at Chipotle, we have extraordinary teams. And they're constantly getting better. And they're getting better because they're challenging themselves. You see, now, to become a crew member at Chipotle, you have to be hired by the crew. So our top crews are hiring the new crew members. And they're hiring people not based on experience or education or background or anything like this. They're hired on characteristics that you can't teach. Things like smarts, ambition, presentability, curiosity, things that either you have or you don't. But if you have them, you have extraordinary potential. And we create a culture, a set of circumstances in our restaurants that allow these top performers to reach their potential. They're encouraged to follow their dreams and work hard and do meaningful work. I'll give you an example, just a little example. Think about typical fast food experience. Customer walks in, orders a number one, and hurry up, by the way. They turn around, get the number one, done. There's nothing about food, there's nothing about service, there's nothing about hospitality. Think about the new fast food, the Chipotle format, the pizzeria locale format, the format for all these other fast casual restaurants that's going to make fast food irrelevant. You order something, or you might have, as a customer, have a question. Well, what's in this sauce? Oh, let me tell you. I made that sauce. This morning I went to the walk-in, I got, fresh produce, I got some herbs, I did this, blah, blah, and they really take ownership. They're really cooking. They really have pride about this. They understand the ingredients. And they can connect that with this vision that they're doing something bigger than the product itself. To change the way people think about and eat fast food is to understand that the fast food experience can be one that's not only tasty and convenient and delicious, all this, but that is part of a sustainable model that respects farmers, that respects the environment, that respects animal welfare, respects people's health, and ultimately it respects the customer's taste buds. And so feeling a part of that and being empowered to deliver that experience and to be the future leaders of the company attract more and more of these top performers. And it's this virtuous cycle now that is going to provide the future leaders for not only Chipotle and Shophouse and Pizzeria Locale and perhaps the other concepts that we envision, but hopefully the other fast casual concepts that are coming out. It's something that we're all very, very proud of, and we think it's important work. Our customers are worth it. They deserve better. And so we think that's the right thing to do. Thank you.